الرجاجيل للماحي جعل 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 الرجاجيل للماحي حطبنا أمراض نفسية حطبنا أمراض نفسية حطبنا أمراض نفسية حطبنا أمراض نفسية يعلم ما فيهم الصاحي 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 كل واحد في دنيا 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 حظي 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 عجاجة والحبايب قراطيس 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 من يمسك القطاس وقت العجاجة ومن يمسك القطاس وقت العجاجة من يمسك القطاس وقت العجاجة من يمسك القطاس وقت العجاجة
Hey everybody, welcome to the Houston Indie Media News Show. This is your host for tonight, V, from bellyofthebeastmedia.org. For tonight's show, I interviewed one of our co-producers at Houston Indie Media, Rachel, who has been a teacher for about 22 years. She's going to tell us all about what's going on in Houston regarding the COVID pandemic and back to school. So here goes. What is the plan even for students and teachers going back to school in Harris County?
Sure. Well, there's been obviously the COVID rates are very high. So everybody, for the most part, well, when I say everybody, Houston ISD, Aldine, I want to say Klein, several school districts are starting the initial first few weeks with everybody being virtual or being online. Now, teachers were given the choice of doing so in many places, either at the district or in their homes. Now, the other caveat is other districts, when you get further outside of the city center, for example, Cleveland ISD and Humble ISD, or even in the southern part of the Harris County area, more towards Galveston County, like Clear Creek ISD, a lot of them did start classes in person. However, all parents did have a choice. You could either choose to be online or you could choose face-to-face. But like I said, the major, largest school districts in and around the city itself have chosen to do the initial first few weeks of school online. Now, the other thing that some districts did was they pushed back their start date to September 8th, in addition to the 3 weeks online, and then that could possibly allow more opportunities for the infection rates regarding COVID to become controlled. Now, in terms of when students do go back to campus, the Texas Education Agency did provide hand sanitizer. They also provide masks and basically what's commonly come to be known as PPE. And, there's a lot of measures that are being taken place for social distancing and so forth at campuses. The big thing, I know that when I was communicating with parents, it's really a difficult because there really are no good options. I mean, obviously, we're still dealing with the technology divide. We are still also dealing with issues of childcare and work schedules. So, those are all factors.
Right.
And also, some kids, just like all of us, really want to get back to school. But the thing that I know when I was having my conversations with parents over the summer is also the importance of understanding if your child wants to return to school because they think it's going to be school the way it was in March, it is not. I even know, because I'm a parent also, the communication for our virtual school kickoff at my daughter's campus, the principal was covering things like there will be limited access to the bathroom. Students will not be mobile necessarily. It would be mainly teachers. And I know several districts have done that where the teachers will actually move in between classrooms, but the students will be sitting 6 feet apart, largely stationary for the entire day. I mean, lunch, you have to be 6 feet apart. It has to be staggered. So, that's the other thing is just making sure when we've led up to this that parents understand, even if they did choose for their child to go face to face, and even if they're in a district that did open for face to face instruction on Monday, that face to face instruction looks very different than what it had.
You're saying that you're saying that like within the city, a lot of schools are starting face to face, and then outside, most are doing the first few weeks online?
I know, actually, it's the opposite. Like the larger, more urban districts, by and large, are doing online for the first 3 weeks across the board. And then they're going to be doing face to face after Labor Day. Or in the case of Houston, I believe it's closer to the end of September because they actually pushed back their opening date from August 18th to September 8th. And the reason you're seeing this kind of a variety this year is because, well, it's twofold. Number one, the Texas Education Agency initially came out with their guidelines. The guidelines were not very specific and basically said, you can do up to 3 weeks virtual. We'll send you some PPE, but kids don't actually have to be mandated to wear it unless they're 10 or older. So that was one issue. Now, a lot of public education activists, teachers, the union, the Texas Federation of Teachers, the National Education Association, quickly pointed out that it was rather ironic that the Texas Education Agency had essentially initially stated that parents would have choices, but that schools were all too universally open, even though they themselves, as well as the governor's office, already had stated that they would continue working at home until January for safety concerns. So, but as of right, it's about 50-50. But then after it's continued to evolve, but essentially a lot of it is kind of like what we've seen at the national level. It's a lot of guidance, but very loosely worded guidance, and ultimately superintendents working with health officials and, central district leadership working with health officials and other officials to make the decisions for their district and for their community. But all parents have a choice to either do online or face-to-face.
And what about the teachers? How do they get to decide, or does the district decide who has to go in?
Well, the district generally, what we were told early on is that if you had any pre-existing conditions or you had a loved one that was at a higher risk group, you needed to work with Houston or work with human resources to, express that and get special accommodations. Now, the other thing that happened most recently is, for example, Cy Fair ISD, those teachers were told told that they had to all show up in person for professional development in person. And actually, the Sci-Fair union filed a lawsuit, and a judge stepped in just this past week, basically saying that that was not okay, that was not permitted. So that's probably the biggest case locally, but generally, teachers are not given a choice unless they can document other specific circumstances. But of course, ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, that initially is made for when the person themselves has a adverse medical condition for which a workplace needs to accommodate. Well, with COVID, also, districts and industries and everybody's also trying to revisit those policies in a way that is empathetic, but also allows for there still to be some rules and guidelines. But yeah, we're just really in a very nebulous time. But in general, I know in my specific case, I was chosen to be a virtual teacher. That had nothing to do than the fact that while I do have a husband that has received a transplant, I was explained that decision was made because I had already had experience teaching virtually. Other things that in terms of teachers' teaching circumstances, they also look at things like certification areas and so forth. But in general, teachers are essentially being voluntold whether they have to go in person or can continue to work from home, and whether they will be in a room with students. Now, even then, that has impacted class size. Depending on the size of your room, most rooms do have like maybe 12 students in them, as opposed to normally where it would be 25, 26. But also I can say, as far as myself and everybody else I have spoken to, that most parents are opting for their children to do virtual learning. So that's the other thing, is that most parents, as of right now, are choosing anywhere between 60 and 80%, depending on the campus, of the parents are choosing to have their children learn virtually.
So, I have so many questions. So, I know that Houston has a problem with really large class sizes. How, are they getting more teachers? How are they going to have some of these smaller classes when I've heard numbers are up to 40?
Yeah, well, and even I myself, while it wasn't Houston, I was in a classroom last year where I had up to 36 students at one point. Right now, things are working out because most parents are choosing to have their children learn at home. And I know that most of the guidelines for, because when districts sent out surveys to try to plan for the next school year, the explanation, at least I can say on the survey that I filled out and other people I know filled out from the parent side of things, you had to, if you were choosing online, you had to understand that this was a decision that could not be revisited until the end of the 9 weeks without special circumstances and a direct conversation with the principal. So as of right now, the smaller class sizes are okay because most parents in the greater Houston area have chosen to keep their children home to do virtual online learning. Now, what happens or how long that will continue to be the case remains to be seen. I do think perhaps that's part of the reason why, even though I'm a virtual teacher, after Labor Day, I'm expected to report to the campus and sit in an empty classroom to do my teaching. Okay. And I was told at some point I may have a second teacher in the room with me, but that's all I've been told up to this point.
So you've been a teacher for how long now?
This is my 21st year in public education.
What is your opinions on, it's going to be so weird for children to stay apart from each other and, just all those restrictions doesn't seem uh, like proper for children?
And see, that's the caveat, especially when we're talking about smaller children or just children in general. I mean, we're social creatures. But of course, you know, you have to put safety first. And so the virtual option, but even with the virtual option, some of the things, even with my years of experience, building relationships with kids, you know, connecting with them, also connecting with them in a situation. You know, I have families where, yes, they do have a tablet. Yes, they do have a Chromebook or maybe a laptop, but they're sharing that device that was provided by the school with multiple school-age children.
So if only gets one device, they don't get one per child?
Depending on the district. Where I currently work right now, it is one per family. And I don't think that my district is unique, because the other thing that is taking place is, yes, districts have rainy day funds. Yes, they are investing those in things like technology, but because of COVID, technology is taking longer to arrive, and coupled with the fact that districts, because they are public entities, already have a pretty lengthy red tape process as it is, just to do what's called a purchase order, which is essentially the hoop jumping and paperwork that needs to happen before you can even place an order. And then from there. So, but yes, districts, depending, and then in situations like that, you know, I talked to a mom yesterday. They're waiting for a computer to be provided by the district. They do have one, but then she also has an older child who's getting ready to start college classes next week. So for this week, it's not an issue, but for next week, we're going to have to do some creative scheduling. And then, of course, that means that I have to be available probably more than I would normally be. I'm giving parents my personal cell number, which I always have in the past with specific families that I knew needed extra support. But right now, it's essentially I'm giving it to everybody, because some of them still need support with basic needs, and so plugging them into those resources. Others need basic support as far as not understanding the lessons, or their children have questions. And then others need support, for example, how to maneuver the technology and utilize it. So, you know, it's a lot of things right now, and it's just a lot on everybody's plate.
I know that teachers spend a lot of money, a lot of their personal money on their students. How has that changed with COVID, and how do you foresee it changing more in the future, since we are in this pandemic for who knows how long?
Well, and I am concerned about that, because in the past, yes, like I know as a teacher, yes, we do spend our own money, and, you know, we always ask for those supplies at the beginning of the year. Myself and most teachers, especially if you work in Title I schools, which are schools that are disproportionately low socioeconomic status schools, they tend to obviously be also disproportionately minority schools. A lot of what we've historically done is you just kind of have community supplies that you pass out throughout the year. That way, there's absolutely no knowledge of who has and who does not.
Right.
Well, now part of the Center for Disease Control regulations state that all supplies have to be separated. And I know myself and several teachers, once again, right now, you know, the numbers are small and so forth, but we can't afford to buy individual supplies for every single student. Now, I haven't, as of last March, I wasn't buying supplies as far as pencils and paper and those sorts of things. But now you're buying, for example, you know, a wireless tablet or keyboard. You know, now you're buying different things to be able to teach different pieces of technology, certain licenses of things that you feel like would benefit your students that a lot of companies did offer teachers for free or significantly discounted at the start of the pandemic. Well, that, you know, that's no longer the case. So, you know, you're spending money on apps, you're spending money on extensions, you're spending money on technology. I know some people are spending spending money on green screens and lights to, yeah. So, I think a lot of teachers, but a lot of teachers too, like we're not necessarily spending money because we don't know what to spend money on,
Right.
because things are constantly changing all the time, and they will continue to. So you don't want to invest and have it, not be utilized, or be for naught. So, but the one thing I know a lot of teachers are stressed about is the fact that you can't have these supplies, how the school is going to fund the supplies for students. Also because I can't be wiping down 70 pencils at the end of every day with Clorox wipes.
That was one of my next questions was, I know you're doing it virtually for the next, few months, I guess, at least, but do you know about what is like going to be the protocols? Like as specific as you can be, please, as far as sanitation, I guess.
Just frequent sanitation. But I don't know. I know the one thing that they're doing is 6 feet, social distancing, fewer students in classrooms. I know a lot of my friends who are starting virtually, but were selected to be face-to-face teachers. The other problem becomes we don't have the technology, because most of the technology has been signed out to families since last year. And then even then, how can we share technology when there's supposed to be a sanitation process? I know as a teacher, when I got 27 over-the-shoulder red knapsacks, and my plan was going to be for kids to just number those, and kids just keep those knapsacks and then put them in a hook behind their chair, and then they just keep their things. And then I also bought 30 little mini bottles to essentially give them each their own hand sanitizer throughout the day.
If you don't mind, could you give me an estimate of how much you've spent to prepare for this next school year?
Oh, okay. I'm thinking, because I also got a touchless thermometer, because up until a few weeks ago, we weren't sure that my campus was going to have a school nurse or not.
Wow.
So,
that's another question, really. Like, you would think they would be hiring more nurses.
Oh, yes. No, the problem is not it's hard to find nurses to stay in public schools. What's been explained to me in the past is the amount of paperwork and expectations compared to the pay sometimes is challenging when nurses have opportunities to work more and make more money, and the paperwork not be as cumbersome in other hospital and medical settings. So it's not that the positions aren't there, the positions aren't always filled. So, but we did get a school nurse, but I'm just thinking out loud, I'd say probably I've spent about $400 so far this year. But most teachers spend on average between $1,000 and $2,000 each year on their classrooms.
Wow.
So it's just more the money is kind of the same. It's just more shifted, like I said, in what I'm buying. I'm buying, apps and things to try to make my lessons as engaging and effective as possible, coupled with, purchasing my own face shield, my own masks, because while these things should be provided for me, I've also been teaching in public schools long enough to know that it's better if you have your own plan, and then that way when things come through, it's a pleasant surprise. But oftentimes, for a wide variety of reasons, they don't. So you just kind of have to, come up with a plan. So
can you talk about the city budget, and I don't know how much details but like the increase for the police force? And, versus like everything you're telling me seems like we definitely need to be worried more about education, or really worried about our children's education at this moment.
Right. Well, and I can't speak specifically to what the city's done with the police budget. I do know that I know we say defund the police. I think that gets people concerned, thinking that we want to just get rid of police, when really it is reallocating those funds into more proactive things like social services, like community mental health, and, really stopping the militarization of the police. But no, I mean, myself and, as teachers, we just kind of laugh because, our budgets have been getting cut for years. And they continue to. And it's just, it's very sad. And it's not one of the things that COVID has really done is brought to the forefront, I think, all of the inequities and issues in our society, and in terms of our values, and also, in terms of how we prioritize our institutions, public schools being one of them. And it's not just because I'm a public school teacher, but I don't think I should have to, or any teacher should have to spend the kind of money that we spend. It really should be provided. And also, like, we have a social worker, and most schools do have a social worker, but they share that social worker if they have one with multiple campuses. Mm-hmm. So, those sorts of, we don't have, I'm trying to think. At my my current campus has been without a nurse for a year and a half. We just got another one.
Wow, that sounds illegal or something.
Well, they do have nurses that travel and come and assist with medications and things. But no, honestly, when that happens, it gets delegated to office staff and to administrators. And like I said, as teachers, then you just end up doing things like, I bought myself a touchless thermometer because mm-hmm. I had no guarantee that I was going to be able to ensure that kids didn't, and I also understand that that's not the only indicator of COVID, and that there is, the possibility that children can be asymptomatic. But still, and then before that, the campus I was at before that did not have a nurse for a year. And then the charter school I was at just didn't have a nurse. So the campus principal was expected to dispense medication and handle those sorts of things.
Can you give me your criticisms and also like praises for the district's responses to the pandemic as far as next year goes?
Sure. Well, I do think the districts that pushed their start date back to September 8th, I think they gave themselves more time, and both for themselves to be ready and also just to really see, because we are beginning to see, I want to say it is 4 out of the 7 markers or 6 out of 10, but we are starting to hit the targets to be able to potentially begin to reopen school in limited capacity.
What are those markers?
In terms of the certain number of cases per day, certain percentage increases in cases, certain percent. It has to do with percentages of hospital occupancy as a result of COVID, new infection cases. So I'm not saying we're there yet, but I am. What I did see was that Houston is starting to plateau, and so there is potential. But so I do think the districts that pushed their dates back, also the districts that went virtual for the first 3 weeks and didn't start face-to-face right away, because, for example, I do know that in Humble ISD, for example, which is in the northern part of the city, they did open face-to-face. They had a very well-developed plan. Their superintendent, Dr. Fagan, was one of the first to put out a video explaining the plan. And I know, but that being said, in spite of all of that, they've had active cases already of COVID. Same thing with, so, and then the other thing, and it was my experience as a teacher, I was very hopeful because I do think that I was hoping that in this new normal, we do a lot of wasted time in public education, a lot of meetings for the sake of meetings, a lot of paperwork for the sake of paperwork. And I was really hopeful that COVID and this everything that's going on would have us reevaluate the effectiveness or the need for some of those things. Also, there might just be a respect for teachers again. And unfortunately, at least in my recent experience, there was a lot of, like, instead of giving teachers time to grapple with and problem solve and think outside the box and collaborate as professionals, there was a lot of time sat and listening to presentation after presentation on policy and branding and video etiquette and just things that were not what I feel valued teachers as professionals or valued our time, or really just, unfortunately, there continues to be this lack of trust of teachers. In a lot of cases, too, teachers are being told things, but they're not really consistently at the table to be part of the conversation. In fact, I would say out of all of this, teachers are the largest group that has been left out of the conversation. As
Can you
far
elaborate on
as,
that a little bit?
oh, sure. As far as, yes, teachers have not really been invited to the table as far as being asked or about how to open, asked about different things that we could do, given opportunities to play with technology and the different platforms. So essentially, and it's not just myself, I know a lot of my teacher friends in several districts, you're getting emails and things basically saying, this is what we're doing, this is when you report to campus, but there is no conversation and no dialogue happening. And there's a lot of conversation around, for example, fatality rates with children in COVID, from the numbers we have, a lot of the indicators are that it is lower because they're younger and healthier. Yes, but what about the teachers that are in the rooms?
Mm-hmm.
What about our health? What about our safety? And that has very much been absent from the conversation in general leading up to this. I just really feel like we went from last spring being these venerated, respected people to now being, you're just running in your hamster wheel as fast as you can. And there is no respect or inclusiveness as far as letting teachers chime in or be part of the planning and problem solving that is needed right now. And I just, it's unfortunate because I do feel like the school reopening was a missed opportunity as far as we could really reimagine public education, but we're just doing the same old with a computer screen.
Can you talk more about what you do imagine, what changes we could have made?
Sure. Like, for example, like when I was part of this summer camp team, we talked a lot about gamification to teach the standards. We talked about, we would teach each other, like I learned how to do TikTok and a bunch of other things that, I'm way too old to be doing technically, but, it's a new way to use this technology and hook kids and hook students. And, a lot of things I learned, making trailers for a topic using iMovie. A lot of them, making myself as a teacher dance, taking a picture of myself and making it dance with Snapchat. A lot of these things, some people might say they're fluff, but I mean, that's how you get the engagement to build the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So kids, and I would love to be able to do more of that, but right now it is, oh no, we need you to use this lesson plan template. We need you to put these things here, and no, you need to do it this way, and you need to write what you're going to teach this way. And it's just focusing on the wrong things. Like we could just, I just really wish it would be much more like, hey, if they would have just given us 2 weeks with like objectives and then just basically let us meet virtually and just throw ideas out and then Skillshare and I don't know, just very decentralized DIY opportunities to really grow and move and make things happen.
Anarchist, perhaps.
Yes, there you go. But yes, just much more like, because that's kind of what I was envisioning. I was like, maybe they'll finally just let us do this and see what happens and see what works and what doesn't work. The other thing, though, that also has happened is that part of the pressure also comes from, at this point in time, the Department of Education, nor the Texas Education Agency, nor the legislatures have done anything as far as what they have done is said that the Student Success Initiative grades, which is 5th grade and 8th grade, which students are given historically have been given multiple opportunities to pass STAR, and if they don't, they get retained. They have removed that requirement, but they haven't waived the STAR altogether.
Huh.
And so that's the other thing, is that teachers and district officials and campus leadership, we also still have this. And I think that's also why perhaps the decentralization and the Skillshare and just sort of the creativeness wasn't supported, because we still have this big looming one-size-all-fits test that our students are still expected to perform on, as far as we know, as of right now, either in May or in early April. And that's also in spite of the fact that we know half the students in Texas had a significant disruption to their public education when the schools closed last March.
Can you just really fast, for people who aren't parents or maybe aren't in the state, explain why standardized testing is a problem?
Well, standardized testing is a problem across the board. Well, it's problematic. Oftentimes, because it is of the way it's being used. It's not just used to inform practice or inform us about what students know or what they need more practice or more support to learn or master. It's used to evaluate teachers. It's used to evaluate schools. Also, there is a huge just volume of research that says the number one thing that indicates whether a student is going to be successful on these tests is socioeconomic status. So we already know that. Now we're going through a global pandemic where now there's also been a disruption for students. And once again, those same students who are already at a disadvantage because of biases and because of a lot of factors that nobody in the school control are already statistically more likely to not perform well on those tests, are now even more so because, of course, with the technology divide and so forth, they've been left out.
Yeah.
So, yes. So high stakes standardized testing, and also it costs a ridiculous amount of money. I want to say it's like $9 million or something. Yes, and it's just not really something I think we need to be investing in during a global pandemic. So, in terms of defunding the police, I would also advocate for defunding high stakes testing because really those finite resources need to be reallocated to other things, especially right now.
Do you have anything I missed in the last 15 or 20 minutes we have?
Well, one of the things I just want to kind of throw out there is, and I am a member of the American Federation of Teachers, and so regardless, Google, AFT, HFT, or even the Texas Federation of Teachers, if there is a year to join your union, it is this year. Now, I know there are some professional organizations that also districts sometimes promote more than the union. I will say that those professional organizations, I'm not going to say they're bad, but I'm going to say that when it comes to advocating for your rights or complicated situations with you and a supervisor or you in the district, those professional organizations are not going to support you the way a union will. Those professional organizations are more for if you get sued because of false accusation, and which the union does that too. So I definitely encourage, every teacher out there, we really need to make sure that we are in the union this year more than ever. And I would also just want to encourage parents to continue to pay attention to what's happening at your child's school, in your child's district, and also just reach out to teachers, but, just be kind with teachers. We are, like I said, we're working very, very hard trying to build the plane in the air and trying to get all of this going. And and so that would be just my only other thing is just, asking for other community members and parents to partner with schools and teachers, but also pay attention and advocate for safety and also best practices.
So I'm sure you've been thinking about this a lot. Do you have any suggestions, advice, tips for new teachers? Since you are a 2 decades long teacher, and you're a parent yourself, so perhaps you have some advice for parents.
Sure. Well, one of the things I always tell new teachers is personal contact is important. A lot of what I have done is even just sending a little message from video, like a general one with like a quick text to individual parents. It lets them know you're there. It lets them know that you're available. The big thing is, of course, keep work-life balance. I know I'm actually mentoring a brand new teacher, and I keep telling her we're all first-year teachers. Don't stress about this. Do the best you can. We're all in this together. Definitely reach out and work with, find your marigold, find your teacher group that you can lean on, that can give you good ideas, that won't judge you, that can lift you up. It's very, very important. And, so those are really kind of the things. And then, parents just, be patient with the teachers. So I know right now as a parent, I'm helping my daughter with Algebra 2, and it's scaring me to death, but, we're going to do our best because, my daughter's officially better at math than anybody else in the house. So, also Khan Academy has free videos and tutorials to help. Trying to think. Yes, and YouTube, Google, and Khan Academy. You can learn a lot from those platforms. The other thing is I'm realizing a whole new level of DIY possibilities and learning things. Like if you would have told me 6 months ago, I would also know all these other special things around providing technical support, I would have told you you're crazy. So, yes.
Is there anything else you want to
No, I think that's it. So definitely, if people want to, another organization that I always encourage people that we've had on the show is Community Voices for Public Education. They're a great group. They always offer great information as far as how you can plug in and what the major issues in public education are. And so also I would encourage listeners to check them out on Facebook or Google.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rachel.
Okay, thank you.
That's it for tonight's show. The organizations that Rachel mentioned tonight were Community Voices for Public Education and the American Federation of Teachers. I also want to tell you about this new project that I'm a part of. We are the Belly of the Beast Media Collective, anti-authoritarian news and media by, for, and about people of color. So check that out online, bellyofthebeastmedia.org, and you can find Houston Indie Media online on Facebook. Stay safe and stay strong. This is V signing off and reminding everyone out there, don't hate the media, be the media. Peace.
Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on, no matter what? Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on, no matter what?
See, I gotta draw a line, I can't take it no more. If you ain't down with revolution, what you waiting for? Making money for suckers and not communities poor. Ripping flags off of coffins, man, this ain't our war. Colonized and terrorized by the world's biggest killers. The US government, the biggest weapon and drug dealers. Filling prisons with children, incarcerating the future. MySpace and Facebook got us stuck on computers. Stuck on stupid bumping music that's abusive to the shorties. And the nonsense that you're spitting, they just listen and absorbing. I've been dormant, I've awoken, I'm a giant, I'm ready. I'm with the Apple and Oaxaca and we hold the machetes.
I rock hard like Palestinian children holding slingshots. I'm with every single kid that's down for hip-hop. For the culture, the life, what it really stands for. This music is resistance, it's the voice of the poor. I'm on the side of the workers, the teachers and lunch ladies. On the streets with brown mommies raising our brown babies. I'm with youth organizers cleaning up the Bronx River. I'm like Jaime Escalante when I stand and deliver. I'm with Evo Morales, man, he running Bolivia. Distribution of the land so we can all live bigger. I'm with Hugo and Fidel, Grandmaster and Melly Mel. I'm with the Panthers up in Queens, justice for Sean Bell. I'm with Camacho Negron, I'm with Ojeda Rios. Freedom for Oscar Lopez, time to get in the pill. I'm with Abu Jamal, I'm with Asada Shakur. I'm with the compas in the market, he getting a penny more.
Telling the truth, exposing the lies. Thinking about the dead soldiers when you're driving your ride. The people die for the war, and Daddy Bush's revenge. I'm with the widows, the children, and the lonely best friends. I'm for families staying together as one. I'm not for the raids and the deportations. I'm with Victor Toro and the MIR. So watch out for them snitches in that unmarked car. And for Lil Saulito, we gon' fight for your moms. So we gon' shout her out twice in one song. I'm for 12 million workers and Elvira Arellano for a world without borders and a better tomorrow. Stop,